This is a short video about the two Labours of the Month's hangings that I've been showing you side by side on Instagram. The one we're looking at now is the men's Labours, which is based on a set of stained glass windows from Lausanne Cathedral. And it was kind of done on a whim because for years I've earned my living doing history schools as a Viking or a Roman or an ancient Greek lady, and I like to have something to sew while the children are coming in, because if I sit and do the actor thing and be very, very still and silent, it actually pisses a lot of kids off and they just act up, especially boys. Whereas if I sit and sew, they let me get on with it. So I kind of started this one on a whim and just did one and then the next one and then the next one. The bit I really don't like doing on these is the filler patterns, which are really boring because it's the same thing over and over again. But the men's one is the last piece that I've ever done using commercially dyed Appleton's wools. And it was also done on a sort of an assortment of bits and pieces of tweed with this lovely grey Manx tweed in between it. And by the time I got about halfway through that one, I'd started doing all of my embroidery in natural dyes, which is how I did the woman's one. And for me, the woman's one is a much better composition because I've done all of the panels on a white Manx tweed, and they're all naturally dyed. Even the border cloth is naturally dyed with madder. So for me, the one I really like is the woman's one because it's naturally dyed and it's my composition. I mean, each of the pictures is based on something from an original manuscript, but they're all doing something that's roughly equivalent to what their male counterparts are doing to balance it out. And the reason that I did a woman's one was when I was working on the man's one, I started looking, by the time I got to sort of doing March, I started looking at more and more Labours of the Month because, of course, they span from really quite early times. You get some Anglo-Saxon ones, right through till 17th century ones as kind of these farming and just rural life calendars. But they're all men. You get the odd woman in the background. I think in the Duke de Berry ones, there are some women doing shearing and things in the background and women working in the fields in the background. But I wanted to do one that, I mean, I suppose it's a bit of a revisionist feminist history, but I've always been interested primarily in the history, be it anecdotal or based on legal evidence, of what women were doing in history. So this was my answer to all of those medieval and beyond Labours of the Months that concentrate entirely on what men were doing. Because I think the pieces that just focus on men, these are the ones where reenactors, they're the reason that reenactors occasionally get the question, did they have women back then? So that was my answer to it. And I do like when, if I step back a little bit because they're against the door, I do very much like to display them side by side. Sorry, I'm trying not to trip over the cat litter tray. I do like to display them side by side. I don't normally have these things up in the house because I like to have other people's art on the wall. Looking at my own art, I always say it makes me feel creatively constipated. It's not that I see the mistakes, it's just that I'd rather see something somebody else has done than look at things I've done in the past. I want to be thinking about what I've done in the future. So, the men and the women side by side. And you can see the men's one is slightly bigger. But I think that's just because I did the fatter borders on the men's one. And I think the fine, thin borders on the women's one actually look better in context. I think it's a much better composition. But that's them side by side, and I hope you've enjoyed them.